registration requirements and a lessening of efforts to prevent fraudulent voting, according to Matthew Vadum, a political analyst with the Capital Research Center. The thing that is amazing is that they can get the office for as little as $100,000 in campaign funding because no one pays attention to it. And they get to control election opportunities in the state. It's cheap. He said the Secretary of State project is currently targeting 3 states in the 2010 election: California, Michigan, and Minnesota. In total, they count for 82 electoral votes. Madam says that because of chaos and demoralization, the Republican Party has not formulated a response to the Secretary of State project or tried to match their efforts. That was 2010. We did not learn, and those campaigns, the project, had a profound effect. Brunner has been a disaster in Ohio, unless you're trying to rig the game for the Democrats. There are tons of shadiness in Ohio for the 2008 election. The good news about Brunner is that she's running for U.S. Senate, where she can do less damage than if she wins. Brunner made news in October 2008 when she declined to hand over to county election boards 200,000 names on voter registration forms where the driver's license or social security number on the forms did not match the name. The Secretary of State's project praised her actions. Blackwell, this is another report, Blackwell's office was on one of the first and most critical offices claimed by the Secretary of State's project. He was succeeded in 2006 by Jennifer Brunner, who received $167,000 in campaign contributions from the Secretary of State project and immediately began a complete overhaul of Ohio's voting system. Among the changes she made were allowing Election Day registration and the failure to purge election rolls of ineligible and dead voters. And as Lyndon Johnson famously told his campaign manager, "No, sir, this man has ever been as much right to vote as anybody else in this cemetery." Back to the her most memorable moment was when a federal court judge ruled that she had violated federal law for, quote, not taking adequate steps to validate the identity of newly registered voters, unquote. At the time, she admitted that there were, quote, discrepancies, unquote, in about 200,000 new registrations, but refused to allow polling workers to take action on the questionable ballots. If someone, a speaker, begins to see a pattern, this was 2010. I didn't wake up until late in 2018, but this went on around the country, getting people in positions that they would be responsible for counting the votes and making rules, though that's supposed to be left to the legislature of each state, according to the Constitution. We're making rules as to what votes count and what votes don't. Going back to the article, when Jennifer Brunner defeated incumbent Kenneth Blackwell in Ohio in 2006, 12 of the 18 individuals who contributed the maximum $10,000 to Brunner's campaign resided in states other than Ohio. One of these donors, incidentally, was Teresa Hines Carey. Said Brunner, "I received significant support from the Secretary of State project, which helped me toward the election." Brunner went on to make her influence felt in the 2008 election cycle when she ruled that Ohio residents should be permitted during the designated early voting period extending from late September to early October to register and vote on the very same day. Citing the potential for voter fraud under such an arrangement, Republicans objected. But on September 29th of that year, the day before early voting was scheduled to commence, the Ohio Supreme Court affirmed Brunner's decision. Thank you, Ohio Supreme Court, for your contribution to voter fraud. And not to leave out our wonderful Chief Justice John Roberts, who similarly ruled, in effect, so what? There's fraud, maybe not. I'm not going to do anything about it. Thank you very much. In a separate matter, Brunner sought to effectively invalidate 1 million absentee ballot applications that Republican presidential candidate John McCain campaign had issued. Each of those applications had been inadvertently printed with an extra unnecessary checkbox, and Brunner maintained that if a registrant failed to check the box, even if he or she signed the form, the application could be rejected. On October 2nd, the Ohio Supreme Court overturned that Brunner directive on grounds that it served no vital purpose of public interest. I mean, after all, it was John McCain. He was going to be beat, so we'll let that one go. Brunner's most noteworthy claim to fame took place in October 2008, when she refused to provide county election boards approximately 200,000 voter registration forms in which the name did not match the driver's license or Social Security number. Count the Democrats and reject the GOP votes. Boss Tweed would be proud. That's what the Secretary of State project wanted, and that's what they got. Mark Ritchie was the Secretary of State who certified Al Franken's win on a recount. He was a Secretary of State project candidate, and here's the result. Mary Kiffmeyer is absolutely sure that Ritchie's efforts to eliminate voting regulations ensured Franken's victory. Quote, the first thing he did when he got into office was to dismantle the ballot reconciliation program we started. Under that program, districts are required to check that the number of ballots issued by matching them with the number of ballots cast. That way we know immediately that the vote count is accurate. But that isn't what happened, she said. We now have 17,000 more ballots cast than there are voters who voted, and no way to determine what went wrong. Why anyone would eliminate that basic check, I don't know, she said. Well, she doesn't know, but some of us know exactly why you eliminate that check, to make sure the vote counting is accurate. Because that way you can have 17,000 people who didn't vote cast votes. And obviously there are people that have lost with a whole lot less than 17,000 votes on the other side. The Vadum guy quoted earlier was Matthew Vadum. He's one of the main guys at Capital Research. A good organization has tracked the shadiness of these foundations and similar groups for years. He wrote a good piece in the American Spectator about the Franken-Coleman race and its Secretary of State. Both Franken and Obama, by the way, were endorsed by Acorn votes, Acorn's Federal Political Action Committee. Minnesota's Secretary of State isn't a Democrat by happenstance. Ritchie, who defeated two-term incumbent Republican Mary Kiffmeyer in 2006, received an endorsement and financial assistance for his run from a below-the-radar non-federal 527 group called the Secretary of State Project. The entity can